Thanks for joining us. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA Secretariat officially opened in Accra, Ghana on the 17th of August 2020. Due to COVID-19, free trading will begin on the 1st of January 2021 instead of the originally scheduled date of July the 1st, 2020. The free trade area will deepen economic integration on the African continent, considering that the current level of trade is low. The free trade area will boost intra-African trade, promote industrialization and competitiveness, and contribute to job creation, and will also unleash regional value chains that will facilitate Africa's meaningful integration into the global economy. What are the underlying issues beyond trade as this historic free trade area kicks off? My guest is a trade lawyer, ECOWAS consultant, and also president of the National Association of Nigerian Traders, Ken Okoha. The program continues shortly. Stay with us. Mr. Ken, it's my pleasure to welcome you on to Property Ties.
Thank you very much.
And once again, thanks for joining us on the program. Well, let's begin. The African Continental Free Trade Area, you heard the opening. Effective 1st January, it kicks off. Will you say Africa truly is ready for this?
I think, thank you very much. I think if you take a look at what has been going on and the kind of propagation that this particular trade agreement has been given across the breadth and length of Africa, and you also look at the fact that other shores, I mean beyond Africa, have also really sentimentally looked at this agreement as a purveyor of wealth creation and poverty reduction. And thirdly, that you look at the fact that a secretariat has also already been set for this purpose, the purpose of implementing the Afcfta and taking off. That it tells us that we have really prepared to move as Africa, as a continent. But beyond this is also the fact that you also see most of the adjoining protocols that are relevant to the implementation of the Afcfta are already in place and being negotiated. I mean, some of them are being negotiated. And the critical ones are already in place. And then it tells you that, yes, the strategic implementation phase is here and here to come. Africa is ready, so to speak.
Okay. Now, the intricacy here is you see it as a financial thing, but let's look at the diplomacy of it. Now, within all this, you have the West African bloc, you have the Eastern bloc, you have the South African bloc, and other blocks I cannot clearly say, but clearly we have 6 regional trading blocks in Africa, right? So, how prepared are they to mainstream, synergize, and flow together? Do you think they're prepared that way?
For the purposes of the Afcfta, you have 8 blocks.
8 blocks.
8 regional
I
blocks.
thought there are 6.
And of course, if you also take a look at the Afcfta in terms of its contents and the law setting it up, what you see is that Article 5 essentially states categorically that the regional economic communities, which are the blocks you're talking about, REX, as they are called, are the building blocks to the Afcfta. So it means that they are the stepping stones. It means that whatever is going to be done at the at the continental level would be taking precedence from the regional economic blocks. Now, as we come back here, you will see ECOWAS as a regional bloc to the Afcfta. That's why whatever you're doing within the context of regional integration also takes cognizance of what is going to happen at a continental level. And what that means essentially is that our ETLS, for instance, ECOWAS Trade Liberation Scheme, which is a regional trade agreement, has a lot to do with the Afcfta. And therefore, you have to roll the ball down to the ECOWAS regional bloc and then move it from there, for the 50-member countries involved, and then move it down to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement premises. And why the framers of this particular, rule made it so is because they want a situation where Africans will be learning from what has already existed. And what is it that has existed? The RICs themselves. Regional economic communities are already existing. And therefore, from the mistakes that have been made, from the progress that has been made, the lessons that have been learned, all of these are going to package themselves towards the 1.2 billion market share that Africa has.
Okay, fine. How would an African continental free trade area work when Africa is largely not a productive economy?
Well, the working of Afcfta does not really have to do with productive or not productive economy. Now, to buttress this, Africa does not have the fullest of productivity, the fullest of the basket of commodities in her domain. However, what this particular Afcfta has come to do is to, number one, attract or draw attention of other economies that may want to look at Africa as their market, so that instead of staying there and flinging goods into this continent, you can come here and invest.
That's the point of argument now. For instance, if all we trade at the African Continental Free Trade Zone are maybe primary products, and the clientele picks the primary products and bring back finished products, doesn't make any difference?
No, the point is this. Within the context of the Afcfta, you are not taking them out and then bringing them in. No.
Okay.
The goods are going to, that's what we call the rules of origin. That means those goods are going to originate from this particular end of the world, from this particular 54, 55 member countries. So then, if they are not, within the rules of origin, for instance, what we have in the ETLS rules of origin, that's, look, there must be 60%, even if you are not fully producing, even if they are not really, entirely produced here, 60% of the product contents in terms of value addition must be from here. So, in that regard, it creates job for the people. In that regard, it also brings your market share up. In that regard, it creates competitiveness. In that regard, it also reduces the mode and the model of importation and import dependence. Now, Afcfta, like I said earlier, has a market share of 1.2 billion people. Nigeria alone commands about 200 and something million out of that, which means we're looking at, almost 1/50 of the population, or if not more. So, what this means now, and I have to say this, is that if there are factories, producers that are in China, in Europe, in America, who are interested in the market of Africa, they can look at where their largest market is. In this case, they might look at Nigeria, signal Nigeria out. If they signal Nigeria, it is either they come into Nigeria to establish their factory, to produce, or go to a neighboring country, maybe it's Benin Republic or Togo or whichever, and produce from there and move their market, their goods into Nigeria, where the market is. And that's why we are also crying in this part of the world called Nigeria, that look, there are a lot of things that would signal the attraction of investments and investors. Essentially, security. These are some of the considerations that any investor would want to look at and consider before coming in. How secure are we, so that we can also attract these people in our own market and therefore make use of benefit from beyond the 200 and something million market towards 1.2 billion.
Beautiful. Now, when you talk about an economic or commercial enclave of this magnitude, dominance matters here, and Nigeria is a big economy, no doubt. Is Nigeria prepared to dominate For instance, how will this really work without a common currency? European Union, for instance, they have a common currency. There's no common currency in Africa as much as ECOWAS is still battling with the eco currency. How will it work? Is it not possible that if, for instance, let's say the dollar is going to be the common currency in the African Continental Free Trade Zone, so who dominates?
Okay, I think this is an issue, quite all right, and that issue is on the table.
It has both economic and political
Oh yeah,
tones.
it's on the table already. The discussions are ongoing. Africa, within the Agenda 2063 of Africa, they are also looking at a common, currency for Africa. However, if you look at the entire regions, the 8 regional economic communities, take ECOWAS for instance, we have been battling for decades now to have a common currency, which has not been very easy. But it does not really, reduce the visibility of trade. And let me explain this. Take Europe, for instance. Europe has euro, quite all right. But you also see that there are members of, the European Union that are not members of that common currency. I'm sure you know about
Is it because of Brexit?
the UK.
I know.
They just
but,
left.
But before that,
But you also know about Switzerland, for instance. They still have their Swiss francs. But the point is this: it is important, it is good to have a common currency, but that common currency would not really be a bent up, point for a common trade policy.
okay, for instance, been to, say, Salzburg, which is in Europe, and you go to the market, I'm talking about discipline here. You want to shop, you bring out the dollar, tell you no, want the euro. Can we strengthen that in
It is possible.
Africa?
It is possible, but it's a gradual process, like I
Where
said.
people don't just walk in and do
It is on the
life.
table. The discussions are ongoing. But I think that the way to start is what we have already done. That, yes, let's have a common trade policy. Let's have a policy that says, look, we can trade together. Our intra-regional trade is at a low ebb. And therefore,
Which is one of the things this free trade zone has
oh
to do.
yes, it has to really galvanize that first. And then we now begin to look at other macroeconomic, convergence and all of that. This would come later and progressively as we move into a common custom union, a common market, and all of that. So one day, it is possible that we will also have a common, Africa union, like a United States of Africa,
Okay.
politically speaking.
Would you say that the AU's common interest, will be stronger with this, or the big powers, in quotes, will want to capitalize on this, to balkanize this oneness that Africa is trying to achieve?
It depends on the political will of the framers of the
Foreign
African
policy,
Union.
for instance, Nigeria's foreign policy is Afrocentric.
Yeah,
Is that ditto for other African countries?
that's the point I'm making. It depends largely on the framers of this particular agreement. That's number one. It also depends largely on the political will of the leadership that we have in Africa. If they are serious with the Afcfta, and I want to say this, if they are serious with the Afcfta is a hook that can draw in other fishes into the net. And, it carries with it a stronger trade ties among ourselves. And by the time you have that stronger trade ties, you are strengthening your diplomatic power. By the time you do that, you may even come to a point where you have, like a European Union, having one voice at the World Trade Organization. It goes with it other lane towards having a common base for unity in other areas of governance. And that's the way it goes. It depends largely on the kind of political will that we have and the understanding of the rules and the playing of the rules. Not playing to the gallery.
Okay, let's look at another perspective, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area and the border closure policies of the African countries. For instance, Nigeria had a border closure for West Africa. I think they relaxed it recently, and a few other ones. If these policies subsist and they exist, how will this work?
Now,
Will it not be an affront
no.
to the principles of the
By
free
the
trade area?
time the AFCFTA comes into play, we are just looking at ourselves like, I mean, a common border. So those demarcations will now be written in pencil, if you understand what I mean. So that means they can be erased any moment. So they'll be drawn with pencil. Written in pencil means that they can be deleted structurally, okay, in terms of trade. So it means that your trade can flow unhindered, provided they are emanating from Africa.
Where lies the safeguards? For instance,
There
why
are
did
safeguards.
Nigeria, for instance, close its borders?
There are safeguards. That's why you also have the dispute settlement mechanism also. But the only thing we are also crying about the dispute settlement mechanism in the Afcfta as it's construed right now. Some of us are saying, look, we need to review it. We need to amend it so that it doesn't take away the rights of the traders themselves, take away the rights of manufacturers. For instance, in the dispute settlement mechanism as it is constructed now, a trader cannot approach that dispute settlement body. It is only the country, the parties, I think it's Article 16 and 34 also, the parties that agreement in protocol, it is only the parties, which is the member states, the 55 member countries, that can approach the dispute mechanism, the dispute settlement body. Now, if there is any crisis, take for instance what happens between Nigeria and South Africa, between Nigeria and Ghana, where you have Nigerians must leave Ghana, and then South Africa, you have xenophobia and all of that.
Good.
So if this happens, then I cannot, as a trader who is settled in South Africa, go to the dispute settlement body of the Afcfta. It is until my country goes there. That is wrong. So my goods would have been done with, my integrity would have gone done with, my investment would have just finished, and then it is when the country decides that something happens at the dispute, it knocks out. And we're saying, look, why don't you create, there are 8 regional economic communities. Why don't you use their already standing dispute bodies and then make that as the dispute settlement bodies? 2, why don't you also open it up so that both the member country and the specific trader, business actor can be able to access the dispute settlement body and seek redress, so that it doesn't apply to what we have here already in ECOWAS, where, for instance, as a trader, I cannot approach the ECOWAS Court of Justice in terms of trade irregularity or infringement upon my business, upon myself, except when it has to do with strictly human rights issue. So it will limit the beneficiaries, the people who are supposed to be beneficiaries. They will end up bearing the brunt of the AFCFTA.
I hope this will be addressed. Now, just like Nigeria has been very firm on not signing the Economic Partnership Agreement, that is EPA.
Yeah.
It took Nigeria a while to sign the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And when Nigeria signed, it was like pump and pageantry for Africa.
Absolutely.
Nigeria is big. Is it possible, if we don't strategize well and put things in place to dive in properly, we may be big, some small economies could dominate the free trade area?
Absolutely correct, you are. And I want to say this, that, the fact that we are the largest economy in Africa today does not make trade smile at you if you do not get prepared. And that's why many of us were shouting against, I was one of the people that said, look, we don't have to sign AFCFTA in a hurry. Mr. President, just hold on your pen.
But did we sign in a hurry?
We did not, eventually. And the president, the president and his government listened to say, look, we need to do the proper things. And I can tell you today that everybody, all the private sector operators in Nigeria are happy. Not fully happy, but in terms of process, we're happy that you are being consulted. And you look at what the National Action Committee on the AFCFTA is doing today, in terms of sensitizations, in terms of, if almost on weekly basis, there are actions being taken under the AFCFTA. These are preparatory ways of driving us through. The only problem I have is the negotiation aspect, where there is lack of connectivity between the negotiators, and the people. Where you have the people deciding on the positions that should be taken to the negotiation table. Contrary to what was happening at the EPA level, where you have actors deciding and then the negotiators taking those positions as the decisions for the country.
Okay, just before we go, just like I asked you, is Nigeria ready? Now, are Nigerian traders, West African traders, SMEs, name it, ready for this free trade area?
The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that there is no country, and I want to state this and put this on record, there's no country in Africa today where you get to their markets that you don't find Nigerian traders. In fact, there is a statistics that revealed that about 61 to 67% of all traders in the whole of markets located in the whole of 55 member countries of Africa are Nigerians. So, if that's the case, these traders become the ambassadors of Nigeria. Which ambassadors doing what? Not the political ambassadors, but ambassadors of Nigerian products and goods. Now, the only problem I have is that majority of these traders have about 97 to 98% of goods imported from China, from Europe, from America, that they're dealing with, are dealing on over there in the countries where they're located. But we can change the entire equation by doing what? Ensuring that our production level, production axis is boosted, whether at the SMEs level or the bigger level, and then the goods that these people are going to be, selling and distributing as ambassadors, showcasing over there, exhibiting over there, are now going to be made in Nigerian goods. And it starts from our own level of patronage. How much do we patronize Nigerian-made goods? It also starts from the government. How do you patronize at every time where you have call, need for goods and services? How much are you patronizing our local? Yes, we have the local content law. How much are those laws being obeyed? How much are we integrating those laws? Enforcement. How do you obey them so that our people, the producers, will also be smiling to the banks and healthy? And therefore, it would go back to the circle of wealth creation. And then the economy will always be enhanced structurally and boosted. Well, and I think that this is one of the things that we need to do. Nigeria has a lot of capacity, but we need to tap them well. The last point that I need to make is the issue of playing according to the laws. You don't wake up and close the border. Yes, we have done that, but I want to see that the closure of the border is a learning point preparatory to the Afcfta implementation. And if we see it that way, what I want to see Nigeria doing right now is, can we look at a clear definition of the lessons that we have learned through the border closure? Let's document them. The security lessons, the trade lessons, the economic lessons, and intelligence lessons. Let's document them so that if anything comes up tomorrow, you can have that documentation as a reference point. And between you and your brothers, what are those things? When I say brothers here, I'm talking about Nigerian neighbors. What are those things that have led to the closure of this border? And can we now begin to say, oh yes, these things will not happen again? For instance, the interstate road transit protocol. Can we begin to also call ECOWAS to say, review these protocols now? Since the Afcfta since the REX are stepping stones to the Afcfta implementation.
Thank you so much, Ken Okowa. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That's it on diplomatic ties as the Africa Continental Free Trade Zone trade area kicks off effective 1st January 2021. Ken says Nigeria is ready, West Africa is ready, and indeed, Africa is ready. Thanks for watching.